Hey, and welcome to our writing lesson for today. Our writing lesson for today is going to be about punctuating dialogue. Okay, so it comes under the theme of dynamic dialogue, writing dialogue that isn't just boring, but moves the story along. But before we do that, that's going to come next lesson. Today's lesson mainly is about creating dialogue that is actually punctuated properly. Because I see quite often kids who don't know where to put speech marks, don't know where to put commas, don't really understand if they want to make it into an adverbial phrase, how to do that. So we're going to do that today. But first we're going to start off with direct or indirect speech. Okay, direct and indirect speech. Direct speech is that someone's actually you're actually quoting someone. And indirect speech is you're reporting on what they said. Okay, so for an example, direct speech would be, she said, I can swim. So she said, I'm quoting her, she said, I can swim. So you need quotation marks because it's exactly what they said. Whereas indirect speech, you don't need speech marks because you just said, she said she could swim. So you're reporting what she said, but you're not actually quoting her. Same as the second one, which is, she said, I will call you. So you're actually saying exactly what she said. Whereas the second one is, she said she will call me. Or she said she'll call you. So she said, so you're telling someone what she said, but you're not giving the exact quote. If you're quoting someone, direct quote, you need quotation marks. And now we're going to look at what you actually need with any sort of dialogue, what punctuation you need in every single time you do it. Okay, let's do it. Okay, so these are the things that you need when you're using direct speech, when you're quoting someone. The first thing you need, made a spelling mistake, is speech marks. Okay, you need speech marks in all of your dialogue. We're going to show you where to use them. It's really important to use them in the right spot. You need some sort of punctuation at the end of the quote. So I'm not going to the shops. There needs to be a punctuation before the end of this. Okay, so if it was I am hungry, I am hungry. Before the end of the quotation marks, there needs to be some punctuation. Is that going to be an exclamation mark? Like I am hungry. Or if it's just I am hungry. Whatever it is, if it's not a question and it's not an exclamation mark, it needs to be a comma. We don't use full stops before there because it's not where a full stop goes. So if you don't know what punctuation should be there, it's probably a comma. Unless it's obviously you're screaming it or it's a question. So the punctuation needs to come before the end of the quotation mark. It's really important. If you do it afterwards, it's not really grammatically correct. Okay? You need appropriate verb, not just said. As you've probably heard me before, if you say in class, said is dead. That's not always true. Said does serve a purpose, but trying to think out of the side of the box and not always using said is really important. And I put this last one in orange because it's not always applicable, but quite often it is, which is using an adverbial phrase where possible after you finish the sentence, which we will go through. So I'm going to use this sentence down the bottom to talk about how to punctuate it. I want my dinner, said Jeff. Okay, so the quotation marks are going to go around exactly what Jeff said. Okay, so what part did he say? We're not going to put it here because then it says, I want my dinner, said. I doubt he said that. Okay, so before that, quotation marks. After dinner, quotation marks. Now, as you say from here, I said I need some punctuation before the end of the speech marks. Is it going to be a comma? Is it going to be an exclamation mark? It depends how we want Jeff to say this. Is Jeff saying, I want my dinner? Or is he saying, like, I want my dinner? So you have to decide how that is being said as to what punctuation goes before the end of those speech marks. I don't think I'm going to put an exclamation mark there because I don't think it needs it. So I'm going to put a comma there before the end of my speech marks. It's really important. I want my dinner, said Jeff. Now I told you said is dead. So I got to think of another word. How would Jeff be saying this? I'm going to cross that out. And I'm going to write pleaded. Please. Please. Begged. It could be begged. Said Jeff. Now you could easily put a full stop there and that is a perfectly punctuated sentence. But the orange dot point here is an adverbial phrase, which is instead of finishing there, you put a comma after Jeff and you add something extra to the sentence about how Jeff did it. Because an adverbial phrase is how someone did it. How did they say it? So I want my dinner, beg Jeff on his hands and knees. Like he's like, please. Okay, maybe. Could be whilst licking his lips. I don't know. So it's I want my dinner, beg Jeff whilst crouching on his hands and knees. So that part there, where instead of just ending my sentence, I put a comma there and said how he said it, which is what makes the speech dynamic and about adding the story along and adding more depth to your story, is that orange one, adding an adverbial phrase. Now, the reason I put it there is because if you do this every time someone speaks, you're just going to add unnecessarily long storylines, okay? But there is definitely a time and a place to show people's character through that extra part about how they said it, okay? So remember, the speech marks go around what they said. There's some punctuation before the end of the speech mark. I don't usually want that said there, and I want, when possible, to put that comma before the full stop and add something about how they said it, okay? So let's think of another one. You could say, tomorrow is I'm the one doing speech. Like, so I've been chosen next to do the speech. So I've been chosen next to the speech, said David while his hands were shaking. You're just adding that bit of show not tell to try to add in extra things to that character's layer. Let's do an example of that, and then I'm going to get you guys to try and do it on your work, okay? Let's try that. Okay, let's try this example. We're going to use this dialogue to see if we can make it better to not only do the correct punctuation, but to make sure that this dialogue is actually moving the story forward and telling more. So at the moment it says, "What are you doing?" said Sarah. "Nothing. Get out of my room," replied Melissa. "Are you making a video for Daniel?" asked Sarah. So it's obviously two sisters talking to each other, making fun of each other, trying to mess with each other. And I don't necessarily think this dialogue shows enough of what's happening in the story. So let's see if we can add in some punctuation, but also make our sentences better. So firstly, punctuation. What are you doing? The speech marks are around the exact right spot, but you can see at the end of the speech marks here, there is no punctuation before the end of it. So what are you doing is a question, so there's no need for a comma because it's a question. So what are you doing, said Sarah. Now, never mind the fact that Sarah should be a capital S. What are you doing, Sarah? We don't know what are you doing, said Sarah? Well, how Sarah's doing it. So what are you doing, said Sarah? We're going to change that full stop into a comma. What are you doing, said Sarah, as she, peered through Melissa's door. So you can hear she's like peering through the window. What are you doing? Said Sarah as she peered through Melissa's door. Now you've heard me say said is dead, so you might want to think about something else we could do instead of this. Maybe what are you doing? Asked Sarah. Inquired. You could think of different words. You could say asked. What are you doing? Asked Sarah as she peered through Melissa's door. So that punctuation now is perfect. Nothing. Get out of my room, replied Melissa. Now I reckon her sister's probably pretty angry. So I'm going to put in here nothing, full stop, exclamation mark. And then it's going to be capital G. Get out of my room. If you don't think the second one should be an exclamation mark, you could put a comma there. Nothing. Get out of my room, replied Melissa. Now replied sounds like a polite way of saying something. So I think Melissa should be saying something a little bit more, angrily. So it should be maybe shouted, screamed. Nothing, get out of my room, shouted Melissa, comma, as her face went as red as a tomato. Full stop. That little bit extra shows that she's nervous. I didn't have to tell you that she's not only is she angry, but part of her's now feeling like she's nervous about what she's doing. So when the next part happens, we can see why she's nervous. Okay. Are you making a video for Daniel? Asked Sarah. Okay, so once again, she's asking a question. So it's going to be a question mark before the speech marks, but also the speech marks are in here. So it's basically, are you making a video for Daniel? Asked Sarah. But Daniel never asked this. So the speech marks are in the wrong spot. So we need to make sure we move the speech marks in the right spot. Are you making a video for Daniel? But I told you, you're never allowed to finish the speech marks without some sort of punctuation. So it obviously is a question. So the question mark goes here. Bad question mark, I get it. Are you making a video for Daniel? Asked Sarah. Okay. She could ask, I've already used asked. You could do something else. What is she doing now? So we might even use a different word like this. Teased. Are you making a video for Daniel? Teased Sarah, comma. And she's messing with her sister now. So I want to make sure whatever she's doing now, she shows that she's messing with her. Are you making a video for Daniel? Teased Sarah as she began to sing wedding music. Dun 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 dun, because she knows it's going to mess with her sister. So you can see we went from, what are you doing? Said Sarah. Nothing, get out of my room, replied Melissa. Are you making a video for Daniel? Asked Sarah. We don't even know how any of these people are feeling. But just by adding in that extra bit after each of those, we've made this story start to come to life. Not only that, but we've really added in those extra things that those teachers are looking for. Really well punctuated dialogue is really, really important. And the last thing I'm going to say, and that's the one thing, the major thing that I should stress about this, never ever write dialogue straight after another. Every time somebody new speaks, you need to skip a line. Every single time. Okay, so if one person speaks and then the other person speaks, skip a line. Not even skip a line, just go to the next line. Okay, if you start writing, what are you doing? Said Sarah, nothing. If you just keep writing like that, it's so hard to read as a teacher. Make sure every time someone new is speaking, you go to the next line, next line, next line, next line. Go to any book, any novel you own. I guarantee you that's how it's done. Okay, this was more of a punctuation one, just with some adverbial phrases at the end. But next time we're going to look at how we can actually talk about bringing out more character through your dialogue. Okay, I hope this has helped. There's some examples and a task set for you in the Google Slides. So good luck. Thank you.